Hello, and welcome to the Love Life Light channel, a space for clarity without noise in an age of confusion. My name is Jamie Thornberry, and I will be your guide. Let me ask you a question. Have you noticed that something just feels off lately? And I don't mean just one thing. It's not just the latest political cycle, the noise on social media, or the state of the economy. It is a low-grade hum of instability, running in the background of almost everything we do. Think about the world we are standing in right now. We don't trust our institutions. We don't trust the media. We don't trust our leaders. We don't trust the data we're handed. And honestly, on some days, it feels like we barely trust reality itself anymore. There is a pervasive feeling that everything could flip overnight, and yet most of the explanations we hear don't go deep enough. They tell us it's polarization, or social media algorithms, or misinformation. But those aren't the cause. Those are just the symptoms. Today we are going to talk about the root. I want to propose that what we are living through is not 5 different crises, but one single crisis showing up everywhere. I can't be crazy for feeling this way, and if you feel that way, you're not crazy either. The ground actually is shifting beneath us, and it's happening at a civilizational level. If you have felt that low-level hum of anxiety, this is for you. We will be doing a 5-part video series to unpack a volume of material that I've assembled into a volume called The Architecture of Civilizational Reconstruction. I know that's a big title, it's a lot, but we have a lot to go through. And we will be doing a 5-part video series to break down what I mean in my thesis of this topic. And so we will begin with video 1 today, and then in a few days or next week, I will get the other one out. And so without further ado, we begin today's lesson and today's video titled, Why Everything Feels Unstable Right Now and Nobody Can Explain It. Something feels off, not just politically, not just culturally, not just technologically, something deeper. People don't trust media. People don't trust institutions. People don't trust government. People don't trust corporations. People don't even trust data anymore. And more quietly, people don't fully trust reality. This is low-grade instability humming in the background of modern life. You feel it in conversations. You feel it online. You feel it in classrooms. You feel it in families. Everything feels like it could flip overnight, and most explanations don't go deep enough. They say it's polarization. They say it's social media. They say it's capitalism. They say it's populism. They say it's misinformation. But what if those are symptoms? What if what we're living through is not 5 separate crises, but one crisis showing up everywhere? Today I want to propose something simple but serious. The instability we're feeling is civilizational. It begins beneath politics. And there's a pattern. Let's look at this pattern that lies across society. In education, we no longer agree on what knowledge is for. Is it for truth? Is it for economic mobility? Is it for ideological formation? Is it for skill acquisition? Universities once saw themselves as stewards of knowledge. Now they often function as credential markets or political battlegrounds. Students graduate with degrees, but many leave unsure whether truth itself is stable. In media, we have more information than any civilization in history, yet trust in journalism is near historic lows. Not because people don't want truth, but because they can't tell where it lives. In politics, debates increasingly feel theatrical. The argument just isn't over policy, it's over what reality even is. In technology, especially AI intelligence, it's accelerating rapidly. But ask a basic question. What is intelligence for? And the room goes quiet. In culture, identity feels fluid, contested, negotiable. Many people feel pressured to curate themselves constantly, as if personhood itself were a performance. Across domains, education, media, politics, tech, culture, the same signal appears. We have enormous power in diminishing agreement about what it is for. That's the pattern. Now here's the part most commentary skips. Stable civilizations across time, across geography, have always shared three silent agreements. They didn't debate them constantly. They didn't always articulate them clearly, but they operated as if these were true. First, reality is real and knowable. Second, goodness is real and not merely preference. Third, human life has purpose and direction. When those three agreements hold, institutions stabilize. When those three agreements weaken, instability spreads. Let's unpack that carefully. If reality is knowable, then science works. Law works. Journalism works. Education works. Because we believe something exists outside our preferences that can correct us. If goodness is real, then justice has meaning. Rights are not arbitrary. Moral claims are not just power plays. If human life has purpose, then growth has direction. Development has meaning. Sacrifice makes sense. But if any of those collapse, everything downstream begins to wobble. Let's focus on truth. If truth becomes socially negotiable, if it is seen as constructed rather than discovered, then power quietly replaces reality. Not always in dramatic ways, often subtly. Narratives compete not to align with what is real, but to dominate attention. Information becomes tribal. Facts become political assets. Institutions stop asking, is this true, and begin asking, is this useful? And citizens feel it. You may not be able to articulate the philosophical shift, but you sense it. You sense when explanations are spun. You sense when language is engineered. You sense when public discourse feels synthetic, when reality itself feels contested. Anxiety arises, because if there is no stable ground beneath us, everything feels provisional. Now let's look at goodness. If good is just preference, if morality is entirely subjective, then rights become fragile. Justice becomes procedural rather than principled. Law becomes negotiation rather than reflection of moral order. This doesn't mean people stop caring about good and evil. Quite the opposite. Moral intensity often increases, but moral arguments lose shared grounding. Two sides argue passionately, but without common reference point. It becomes power versus power. And again, people feel it. When moral language floats free from shared standards, society feels volatile. Finally, we'll look at purpose. If human life has no intrinsic direction, If we are merely biological accidents navigating preferences, then flourishing becomes vague. Success becomes purely economic. Meaning becomes self-generated and leads to autonomy. Identity becomes self-constructed. And that places enormous pressure on individuals. You must invent yourself, define yourself, justify yourself, perform yourself. People have become projects to be solved and manipulated rather than persons to be related to and enhanced from. For some, that feels liberating. But for many, it feels exhausting. Because without direction, freedom becomes weight. And that weight shows up rising in anxiety, in isolation, despair, mental health issues, demographic decline, and even loss of long-term confidence in what society is doing. Civilizations require future belief. If people don't believe in the future, they stop building. Now step back. Education instability, media instability, political instability, technological instability, psychological instability, family instability. That's 6, but I had to include family. 5 domains, 1 pattern. When shared agreement about truth, goodness, and purpose erodes, institutions don't collapse instantly, they hollow out. They keep functioning procedurally, but lose moral gravity. And that hollowing produces the feeling we begin with. Something is off. Not dramatic collapse, drift. Some will say, every era thinks it's unstable. That's true. But there is something historically unique about our moment. Technology now amplifies whatever worldview is dominant. If truth is stable, technology spreads knowledge. If truth is unstable, technology spreads confusion. If goodness is grounded, technology enhances flourishing. If goodness is negotiable, technology optimizes preference without direction. If humans have purpose, intelligence serves growth. If humans lack purpose, intelligence accelerates drift. We have built unprecedented capability, but capability without shared direction magnifies instability. That is why this moment feels different. It is not just cultural, it is structural. Let me bring this down from civilizational scale to personal scale. When truth feels unstable, you second guess everything. When goodness feels negotiable, you distrust institutions. When purpose feels unclear, you feel unmoored. That low-level hum of anxiety many people experience is not weakness. It is a rational response to metaphysical uncertainty. Humans are not designed to live without grounding. We can tolerate disagreement. We struggle to tolerate unreality. Now here's the critical question. If instability begins beneath politics, then solutions must begin beneath politics. You cannot fix metaphysical erosion with legislation alone. You cannot repair civilizational drift with algorithm tweaks alone. You cannot restore trust by simply demanding it. Trust emerges when reality is reliable, stable. Stability emerges when truth is anchored. Confidence emerges when purpose is shared, which means the conversation we need to have is deeper than most public discourse allows. We need to ask, is truth real? Is goodness real? Is human flourishing directional? Not as religious slogans, not as partisan talking points, but as structural, civilizational questions. In the next video, I want to show you something powerful. Across radically different civilizations, different religions, different cultures, different eras, stable societies always operated as if those three things were real. Not because they were naive, but because civilization itself depends on those assumptions. We are living through what happens when those assumptions weaken and deteriorate. Until we understand that, we keep arguing about symptoms. If this resonated, not emotionally but structurally, stay with the series. Because we are going to move carefully from instability to pattern, to root, to direction. This isn't about nostalgia. It isn't about ideology. It is about whether a civilization can remain coherent without agreement about reality, goodness, and human purpose. And that question is no longer theoretical. It is here. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for taking the time to think clearly. If this information has helped you, take it with you, share it, help others. Until next time, remain steady.